Ryuta, an ugly shut-in gamer, is tossed into a world with similar rules to a game he is good at. However, he is too much of a loser to eliminate others. He ends up teaming up with a hairy geezer and a blonde hottie. Ryuta continues to fight the other players in order to escape this hell while trying to riz the blondie. However, before any of this, Ryuta is playing a computer game and gets 4 stars after a win, making him top 10 in the world. Now, he will have to play better players out of Japan to increase his rank. Just then, they get a new challenge and hop into the game. This game, named B-Tomb, sold over 3 million copies worldwide, where one uses 8 types of bombs and sonar to find enemies while remaining out of sight. Ryuta is currently 22 and doesn't have a job. He sits around the computer all day, but in the gaming world, he is well respected, unlike in real life. Apparently, he even got married in the game. Just then, he finds himself in a forest, hanging from a tree due to his parachute. He manages to get down and remembers the last thing he was doing was playing the game. He opens his phone and notices a weird symbol on his wrist, wondering if he was kidnapped by a UFO or something. Luckily, he still has his bag with him, which consists of things he bought. After drinking tea, he walks around the forest, encountering giant bugs and spiders which creep him out. Following that, he starts running aimlessly and ends up on a beach. This reminds him of how his mother forcefully sent his resume to the convenience store and later was approached by 2 bulk agents. Forcing himself to remember all of this makes Ryuta's head hurt, and he finishes the food he bought. He then notices something else in his bag and takes out the square-looking thing that has a timer on it. He ends up throwing it away and the thing explodes, making him realize that they are bombs, as he wonders why he has this many of them. Eventually, he leaves the bombs on the beach and asks the person he saw for help. However, that person throws a bomb at Ryuta and starts running at him, making Ryuta realize he might have to play B-Tomb for real. He picks up his bag and runs into the forest to get away from the psycho following him. Just when he thinks that he lost him and wants to find a better hiding spot, another bomb explodes and he notices that the guy is still behind him. Ryuta wonders if he will have to fight, but is unsure as the bomb can eliminate the guy. Suddenly, another bomb explodes and that guy questions why Ryuta isn't fighting back. Ryuta throws a bomb which doesn't explode, making him confused. Following that, he remembers to start the timer and the other guy compliments his throw, but the next one Ryuta throws doesn't work and explodes in the ocean instead. That guy realizes Ryuta doesn't know how to use bombs and Ryuta starts to panic as well. Just then, the guy finds Ryuta behind him as he asks the guy the reason he is attacking him, as well as the crystal on his hand. The other guy starts laughing at Ryuta for not knowing how to use a bomb and still thinking that he can corner someone. He throws another bomb that explodes next to Ryuta, making him fall down and run again. As he runs away, Ryuta thinks that there is no reason for him to meet his demise and he tries surrendering, but another explosion sends him flying. Ryuta wonders if he will pass away without losing his V-card while the other guy mocks Ryuta to come out. Just then, Ryuta realizes that his crystal is shining and he starts using sonar. Suddenly, another explosion occurs and at this point, the other guy is frustrated. Ryuta wonders why his bombs aren't working and finally remembers how the timer works. He realizes that the other guy's bomb explodes upon impact while his one uses a timer. Realizing that it is the same as B-Tomb, Ryuta remembers that he is top 10 in that game. However, he continues to hide and checks to see if that guy found him. Following that, Ryuta still is unsure if this is real when he hears that guy screaming at him, calling Ryuta a pathetic moron for hiding like that. Ryuta realizes that this is his chance and the other guy notices that Ryuta can even blow him up from behind. Nonetheless, he decides to toss out bombs in all directions, making Ryuta freak out. He eventually runs and jumps into the ocean, and while swimming, he counts down the timer. That guy notices a bomb between his legs and it explodes. Ryuta, who is under the water, sees that guy's body parts drowning. After getting out, Ryuta throws up and thinks about how he didn't have a choice. He then notices that guy's bombs and figures that he'd need them to survive. He then remembers the time when he was rejected by the company that created B-Tomb for work. Back at home, he started arguing with his mother for nagging. His mother told him that one of his uncles was willing to hire him in a udon restaurant, but he refused to work. His mom got mad and started shouting at Ryuta, making him mad as he threw a controller at her. Back in the present, he finds himself by a river and witnesses a blonde hottie named Himiko washing herself. She then notices him as well and starts to panic. Before this happened, Himiko was impressed by how many times Ryuta used to win and thought about him being a top-rated player who was even featured in gaming magazine. Unexpectedly, Ryuta approached Himiko, wondering if she was waiting for someone. Himiko replied that she was waiting for a friend. Ryuta mentioned how one of his teammates logged out and asked her to join, saying that B-Tomb is more fun to play than to just sit and watch. Later that day, Himiko's friend apologized for not playing as one of her brother's friends came over and made her play with them. Himiko told her to pay for snacks as a punishment. Her friend noticed how much Himiko stood out because of her looks. She then told her friend about getting to play with Ryuta, the top-rated Japanese player, and just by playing with them, she ranked up by 20,000. Following that, the two of them visited a cosplay photo booth and talked about how Ryuta could be a fat, thirsty weeb and that it's better not to expect too much. After getting their pictures, her friend advised Himiko to send these to Ryuta, saying that he would be surprised that he got to play with such a beauty. Apparently, there was nothing special about Himiko other than her being a foreigner. All she did was go to school, hang out with friends, and play games, all in all a normal high school girl. Eventually, she found herself in that world as well, wondering if this was her punishment, and noticed all the bombs she had. Himiko then thought of stepping into the forest but decided not to. Having no choice, she lay on the beach, remembering how her friend got a letter where she was supposed to receive 100,000 yen if she wanted to get rid of someone. Their friend group talked about it being real and decided to write someone's name. Just then, Himiko noticed 3 old farts around her, saying that they were not going to eliminate her but mentioned how someone else who didn't feel that way could appear. Following that, they caught fish using their bombs and ate together with Himiko. Masashi talked about how they were stuck and might need to play the game as it is supposed to be played, making Isamu ask him to not joke about it. He mentioned how he was a teacher and always wanted to do the right thing. As the argument escalated, Masashi took Himiko hostage and told Isamu to either eliminate him or do the right thing and be eliminated. Luckily, Himiko used her tasers to get away from Masashi, who told Himiko that it was a joke and that if he wanted to eliminate her, it would have happened a while ago. The whale amongst them, Mitsuo, mentioned that they all need to work together. He threw his bombs and suggested picking a leader so they follow his lead. Masashi argued that the leader could get bad ideas as well, and Mitsuo chose Himiko to be the leader. Fortunately, all 3 of them agreed and threw away their bombs. However, Himiko isn't very confident in her skills when suddenly they notice a plane dropping supplies. They go to check it out and find a box full of food and basic necessities. The 3 of them started devouring the food, with Fatty being the one in the lead. Just then, Isamu appeared, confronting them for eating all the supplies when they should have been saving them for later. Unexpectedly, Masashi stabbed Isamu's throat with his knife to stop his yapping session. Himiko dreamed about her friends going to hang out with Yoshioka and were excited to meet him. Apparently, he lived in the same building as Himiko and invited her along with her friends. After arriving at the meetup stop, Himiko decided to visit her apartment while the others met up with Yoshioka. Back in the present, Mitsuo woke her up as they were hiding from Masashi, and he suggested taking all the food and bombs while they got the chance. The exercise preventing fellow got tired from walking, and they ended up resting for a minute.
Emotional damage!
Just then, they noticed Masashi coming after them and they started running. Mitsuo taught Himiko how to use sonar as they continued to run away and eventually arrived at a bridge. Having no other choice, they decided to cross the bridge, but Mitsuo was scared. Sadly, Masashi caught up with them and made Mitsuo reveal the secret technique of using sonar. Following that, Masashi told Mitsuo to return the supplies or he'd forcefully take them. Mitsuo threw a bomb at him and ran away, luckily reaching the other side of the bridge. Masashi realized that the smoke from the bomb was eliminating all the plants, figuring that it was poisonous. Elsewhere, Mitsuo and Himiko continued to make their way forward and he kept on holding her hand. He told her that the 2 of them needed to fight or they might be eliminated as well. However, Himiko didn't want to eliminate anyone and tried to get away from Mitsuo, eventually punching him. This made him mad and he grabbed Himiko, but she managed to get away. Nonetheless, the fat pig didn't give up and tried reaching for Himiko until she tasered him. This reminded Himiko of the time when she visited Yoshioka's apartment and saw that all her friends were taken advantage of. Yoshioka tried kissing her, but she punched him and tried running away but was caught by Yoshioka soon after. She kicked him and ran home, leaving her friends. Eventually, Yoshioka and his gang were arrested while Himiko's friends moved away. Back in the present, she wondered if this was her punishment when Mitsuo appeared. She tried running away but he pinned her down, saying that he used his sonar to track her and started thinking of a way to punish her. He tore her shirt and started having a great time. Following that, he was ready to make use of his meat when Himiko started the timer on her bomb. This made Mitsuo run away, but Himiko threw the bomb at him. Even though she took someone's life, Himiko was proud that she protected herself. After that incident, she is washing herself by the river when Ryuta appears in front of her. Instantly, Himiko runs away from Ryuta while he tries to stop her. Ryuta realizes that it was the crystal that woke him up as it responded to the sonar pulse she sent out. He figures that he needs to take Himiko's food or starving to his demise would be the only option left. Following that, Ryuta uses his sonar signal and starts following Himiko. He continues to follow her with a bomb in his hand but ends up running into an old corporate slave taking a crap.
Huh?
The man named Kiyoshi tells Ryuta that he doesn't want to fight as he steps on his own poop. Kiyoshi mentions that he was forcefully put in this game, which makes Ryuta force him to answer his question. Kiyoshi agrees and Ryuta finally puts away his bombs. Later, Kiyoshi asks Ryuta if he doesn't remember what happened inside the plane and mentions that it's better for him to not know. Ryuta forces him to talk and Kiyoshi replies that some guys in black suits took him away and he ended up in a cargo plane with a lot of other people. There were a lot of men with weapons inside the plane. Additionally, a screen recording was played where a guy told them that the plane was headed for an island where there was no food or water. If they want to escape, beating the game is necessary. Furthermore, there will be no return and everyone will be forced to play the game. He then shows them the type of bombs they will be using to fight people standing next to them. People started arguing and yelling until one of them was tasered. The guy further mentioned that the guard will be increasing the voltage and that it's better to stay silent. He then said that everyone would receive 8 bombs at the start with no manuals whatsoever. Lastly, he shows them the ship that they've embedded in their left hands, which will come out when their heart stops. In order to escape the island, one needs at least 8 of those chips. In other words, they need 7 additional chips along with their own to win. Just then, Ryuta argued about how they can't tell a game from reality. Ryuta continued to talk trash to the person on the monitor as if he already knew him. Eventually, one of the guards pinned him down and tasered him. This makes Ryuta remember everything and Kiyoshi further mentions that the guards shoved everyone into parachutes, forcing them to jump out of the plane. This is all Kiyoshi knows about and Ryuta realizes that's how he ended up in the jungle. However, he can't figure out why it has the same rules as B2M and wonders if it is that gaming company. The company that he thinks might be behind this is a group of the best game creators in the world. Additionally, Ryuta can't believe he might have to eliminate 7 more people and have to relive that feeling again. Kiyoshi notices that Ryuta is acting a bit weird and suggests working with him. Ryuta likes the idea of teaming up but also thinks about how they'll have to eliminate 14 people. He then asks Kiyoshi about his opinions and he replies that eliminating real people is not something he can do and suggests finding another way. Ryuta finds his thinking naive but realizes that he might have been the same if he had not been attacked or didn't know about B2M. Just when Kiyoshi is about to walk away, Ryuta stops him and agrees to team up. However, Ryuta wants Kiyoshi to show him his bombs as knowing the amount and type of bomb he has makes it easier to trust him. However, Kiyoshi refuses and says that he needs to see Ryuta's bags as well or he won't be able to trust him as well. He also says that the two of them will respect each other more if they don't know what the other has. Ryuta realizes that Kiyoshi is smart and not just another bumbling old man. In order to win this game, not only one's skills in B2M matter but also one's talent at dealing with others. Ryuta figures that Kiyoshi is most likely better at it than him. With that being said, Ryuta asks Kiyoshi to forget what he said and agrees to team up. Kiyoshi mentions that he worked in real estate and compliments Ryuta for being a kind young man. Just then, they hear a weird sound and Ryuta decides to go and check it out. They eventually spot planes flying by and notice them dropping supplies randomly. He figures that the people behind the game want them to play and that's why they are giving them food. With that being said, Ryuta decides to grab the supplies and Himiko notices them as well. Sadly, one of the players reaches the supplies before Ryuta but she unexpectedly explodes. Turns out another player had planted a bomb near the supply. Ryuta realizes that if people see food falling, everyone will run after it and will be forced to fight each other. The people behind this game thought this through. He then looks at the forest, knowing that it is full of people eliminating each other and playing B2M in real life. Eventually, Kiyoshi catches up to Ryuta and he tells Kiyoshi how someone got there before and planted a trap. Ryuta then points towards another parachute but mentions how it isn't worth risking their lives. However, Kiyoshi argues that one can't fight a battle on an empty stomach and one won't survive if there is no food. Ryuta agrees and Kiyoshi suggests heading towards the supply drop, commenting on how he used to be on the track team but is now twice his old weight. This makes Ryuta laugh and the two of them make their way towards the drop. Before the game started, a few people were eliminated and the person responsible was Kira, who first eliminated and then took advantage of 3 girls. One of the police officers mentions how Natsume will be his lawyer, who is known as the overcompassionate hotshot. Depending on the psych evaluation, Kira might not be in prison at all. Back in the present, Natsume appears in front of Kira, who is eliminating frogs for fun. The two of them then walk around B2M Island and Kira mentions how they eliminate cattle animals for food but Natsume argues that it is for a different reason. Kira replies that it shouldn't be wrong if it's not hurting anyone and Natsume mentions that what's wrong is wrong. Kira gets angry and starts arguing when they notice a supply drop. He decides to go check it out and Natsume comments on how Kira gets quiet around his father but is okay with talking to him. After finding the supplies, Kira's father, Yasuhisa, tells Kira to give him his bomb and forcefully takes it from him. However, it doesn't work and Natsume concludes that only the owner can detonate it. Yasuhisa tells Kira to do it and kicks him once again. Natsume tries to stop his father but gets shut down. Following that, Kira detonates the bomb which causes the tree to fall. After checking out the supplies, Yoshihisa takes them away. Natsume tries to stop him, but Yoshihisa replies that it was his idea and his son retrieved the supplies, so he has nothing to do with it. He further mentions that there is no law on the island and Natsumi is just another annoying loser in his way. This reminds Kira of the time when he was playing games and his father kicked him for skipping school. At the island, Kira puts a bomb on his father, but before Yoshihisa can take off his shirt, the bomb detonates. Kira starts smiling and tells Natsume about how he fought back for the first time. He then starts freaking out and mentions how wonderful it feels. Furthermore, he blames his father for what happened and asks Natsume to be his lawyer and tell everyone at the trial again. Natsume starts panicking, mocking Kira for being human garbage and ends up running away. Just then, Kira notices a radar activation and Ryuta appears in front of him. Ryuta wonders how he didn't see Kira and remembers that the sonar only detects people who are moving. He then asks Kira if he eliminated that man and Kira replies that there is no law or police and it is survival of the fittest. Ryuta asks him to calm down, but Kira tells Ryuta to not order him around or he will end up like his father. Ryuta then tells Kiyoshi to run away. While Kira is busy taking the supplies from his father's body, Ryuta and Kiyoshi run away. Kira comments on how running away won't help as this world is just like B2M, the game he is super good at. He then uses sonar and Ryuta figures that Kira might follow him and thinks about how he can't eliminate any more people. Suddenly, Kiyoshi falls down and ends up hurting himself, asking Ryuta to run away. Ryuta starts to wonder if he should really risk his life for a boomer he just met. Eventually, he asks Kiyoshi to hide while he draws Kira away. Kiyoshi realizes that Ryuta will try to fight and tries to stop him, but it doesn't work. Meanwhile, Ryuta decides to teach that dweeb a lesson as he is one of the best B2M players in the world. He uses his sonar and after realizing what Ryuta did, Kira uses his sonar as well, saying that he won't lose to any adults. Following that, he uses another sonar. Ryuta detects it and realizes that Kira is using it to get closer. Ryuta then uses his sonar as well and notices that Kira is pretty close. Unexpectedly, he starts running at Kira and both of them dodge each other. Kira throws a bomb but Ryuta dodges it and runs away. This makes Kira realize that Ryuta is a B2M player as well and standard tactics won't work on either of them. Elsewhere, Kiyoshi takes Yoshihisa's crystal and waits for Ryuta. Meanwhile, Ryuta keeps on running away and decides to set up a trap. Kira, who is using his sonar, gets blown away by Ryuta's bomb. However, Kira is unhurt and throws a bomb at Ryuta and it sticks to his bag. Ryuta throws away the bag, coming out unharmed. Kira then mentions how Ryuta is a B2M player as well and asks him to fight fair and square. Furthermore, he mentions that Ryuta might be really good at the game but most likely is a maidenless loser in real life. According to Kira, Ryuta's problem is that he holds back in real life and suggests he live life boldly as if it were a game. Ryuta replies that a kid who can't even get bricked up should talk about life. Kira throws a bomb at him, causing Ryuta to hit his head on a rock. He then starts making fun of Ryuta for hiding, calling him an actual NEET. Ryuta throws a bomb in return which helps Kira figure out the type he has. This time, Ryuta gets up and starts thinking of life as a game that only is similar to reality. Kira then throws a bomb at Ryuta but he sticks it to his bag and tosses it away. He then uses his sonar to find Ryuta when a bomb comes towards Kira and throws him away. Kira uses sonar again but can't seem to find Ryuta. Apparently, Ryuta is using sonar cancelling as he can predict when Kira might use it. Kira starts to panic about Ryuta being this good when Ryuta throws a bomb at him. After it explodes, Ryuta seems proud of his skills but soon realizes that it isn't a game and he was just about to eliminate someone in real life again. Afterward, Kiyoshi and Ryuta enjoy the supplies they got from Kira and Kiyoshi slurps down the noodles, tearing up with happiness. Ryuta also begins eating and remembers his fight with Kira, wondering if he did alright. Kiyoshi then thanks Ryuta for bringing the supplies, commenting on how he had hurt his leg and Ryuta risked his life for him. This makes him cry and Ryuta thinks how no one has been this grateful to him in his whole miserable life. On the other hand, Ryuta's stepfather comes back home and finds out that his wife has cut herself. She tells her husband that she has done the worst thing a parent could do. Ryuta's stepfather tries calling the ambulance and his wife mentions how she was the one who signed the paper to send Ryuta to that island. Back at the island, the two of them come across a corpse and Ryuta mentions that there might be players around, suggesting they leave. Kiyoshi tells Ryuta that his legs still hurt and he should leave him behind, but Ryuta replies that he couldn't just leave him. With that being said, Ryuta decides to check out the surroundings and counts the number of bombs he currently possesses. After climbing the waterfall, Ryuta senses someone's presence and decides not to use his sonar as the other person might detect him as well. Eventually, he decides to get close without using his sonar while Kiyoshi takes the crystal from the corpse and decides to hide. On the other hand, Ryuta comes across a corpse and tries his best not to throw up. With that being said, Ryuta finally uses his sonar and detects a player who turns out to be Himiko. while Ryuta is wondering if she is the one who eliminated that player. Himiko throws an acidic bomb in Ryuta's direction and it begins to melt the nearby plants. Luckily, Ryuta manages to get away but ends up in front of Himiko. He notices that she has a lot of bombs and thinks that she might be a wolf in sheep's clothing. Ryuta tries to explain that he doesn't plan to fight her and just wants to leave this island. However, Himiko is still wary of him, and seeing this makes Ryuta propose teaming up so they both can get off this island. Himiko calms down for a second and Ryuta tries getting closer, which scares Himiko as she throws her bomb at him. Luckily, Ryuta manages to survive as her aim is god-awful. He gets up and runs towards Himiko, but she dodges him and attacks Ryuta with her stun gun, but he dodges all her attacks. Ryuta then realizes that she is a foreigner and tries speaking the English he learned from Duolingo, but Himiko tells him to not insult her as she is Japanese as well.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
She further mentions that bears are better than men and tries attacking Ryuta. He accidentally slips and kicks her arm, causing Himiko to tase herself. This results in her losing consciousness and falling on top of Ryuta. He tries waking her up and then goes on to remove her bag, feeling as if he is removing her plot. He then gets the idea of actually doing something naughty and starts off by lifting up her skirt. However, he manages to control his urges and figures that she was probably attacked by the man he found the corpse of. Himiko remembers the time when she was taken advantage of and finds herself in Ryuta's arms. She tries to get away but is too numb to move her body. Ryuta reassures her that he won't hurt her in any way. Nonetheless, she takes out a timer bomb from her pocket, thinking that she'd rather eliminate herself than be taken advantage of. Just when the bomb is about to go off, Ryuta stops the timer and takes the bomb away, causing her to cry. Ryuta realizes that Himiko is ready to take her own life and takes her to their camp, where Kiyoshi offers her some warm coffee. She accepts the coffee and takes a sip, causing her to tear up. Kiyoshi figures she went through a lot and reassures her that they won't do anything weird with her. He then suggests teaming up to get out of the island and comments on the supplies they have. Himiko mentions that even if they get back, there is no guarantee that something will be waiting for them. The people they knew were the ones who chose to send them there and picked someone they wanted to disappear. Even if they get back, nothing will change. Ryuta questions her statement, wondering if their friends and family have abandoned them. Kiyoshi also mentions that he has good relationships with his family, and Himiko replies that this could include anyone they know. This reminds Kiyoshi of the customer he got in a fight with last month, and Ryuta asks Himiko where she heard about this. This reminds Himiko of the time when her friend told her that they all had picked her as they wanted Himiko to disappear. Ryuta realizes that someone chose him as well, and the first person that comes to his mind is his own mother. Nonetheless, Kiyoshi tries to cheer up Himiko by mentioning how they need to escape the island and can't give up. Just then, Ryuta hears a sound and uses sonar but doesn't find anything. But they still hear someone getting closer, and Ryuta thinks this can be sonar canceling. Kiyoshi shines a flashlight towards the forest and sees an animal. Himiko tries to run away but is still numb from before. As Ryuta is helping her, a Komodo dragon appears in front of them. The three of them get away, and the Komodo dragons get close to their supplies. Ryuta asks Kiyoshi to take care of Himiko while he retrieves their bombs. Fortunately, he manages to throw a rock at one of the lizards and makes them go away. He then retrieves the bomb and throws one towards the lizard, targeting Kiyoshi. However, the bomb doesn't go off, and Ryuta realizes that the switch isn't working. He figures that these bombs don't count as is because he didn't eliminate Kira. Kiyoshi continues to fight the lizards while Ryuta checks which one of the bombs works. One of the lizards bites Kiyoshi's leg, and Ryuta finally throws a bomb which makes the lizard leave. He then checks up on Kiyoshi, who is gravely wounded. The three of them continue to walk, and Ryuta apologizes for making Kiyoshi carry all the stuff. He also says that they need to stop the bleeding, but Kiyoshi replies that they don't have time for that and asks Ryuta to take care of Himiko. As they continue to walk, Kiyoshi questions why Ryuta didn't leave them behind, as in his perspective, they are just an old guy and an unconscious girl that he doesn't even know. Ryuta asks Kiyoshi why he keeps on mentioning this kind of stuff, and Kiyoshi replies that all he could think of was the thought of Ryuta abandoning him, and it terrified him. Additionally, when Himiko mentions someone wanted to get rid of them, it really got to him. Even though he was kind to his family, Kiyoshi still took advantage of the loopholes and gray areas at work, which can make anyone hate him. He thinks that this might be a punishment for all the sins he has committed. Just then, the Komodo dragons return, and Kiyoshi ends up getting separated from Ryuta. He then uses his sonar but can't seem to find Kiyoshi, and realizes that he isn't moving. The thought of Kiyoshi leaving them behind appears in Ryuta's mind, and he realizes that Kiyoshi has all the bombs and supplies. He once again uses his sonar but can't find Kiyoshi. Suddenly, the Komodo dragons appear again, but a flying bomb arrives and eliminates it. Just then, Kiyoshi returns, and Ryuta wonders if they both used sonar, and they cancelled each other. He then apologizes to Kiyoshi for doubting him, but Kiyoshi says that he is the same and that they shouldn't lose hope. Later, Ryuta asks Kiyoshi if it is okay for him to reveal his flying bomb, and Kiyoshi replies that he didn't trust Ryuta, but after seeing Ryuta risk his life for him, his mind changed and now he trusts Ryuta completely. They then arrive at an old building and try climbing the ladder with Himiko but end up falling onto the ground. Unfortunately, the Komodo dragons appear again and Kiyoshi asks Ryuta to climb the ladder with Himiko while he takes care of the lizards. However, Ryuta knows he can't do it alone and tries waking up Himiko, and the thought of sacrificing her starts crossing his mind. He wonders if he should do something this awful and starts acting like a complete psycho. Kiyoshi notices that he climbed the ladder and left Himiko, mentioning how he lost faith in Ryuta. However, from up there, Ryuta throws a bomb at the Komodo dragons, which releases poisonous smoke. He then tells Kiyoshi that he used Himiko's finger to activate the bomb. Kiyoshi mentions how the gas is spreading, but Ryuta replies they will be fine at this distance. The reason behind this is the sea wind is blowing, keeping the smoke in that area. At the same time, Himiko wakes up and they go inside the building, finding blood stains that are pretty old, making Ryuta think that there was a similar game before they arrived. He then goes to check up on Kiyoshi, who starts feeling dizzy and begins screaming because of the pain. Later, Ryuta brings some water from the river and tells Himiko that the lizards are gone and most likely won't come back. Just then, a sudden breeze allows Ryuta to catch a glimpse of her stunning rice cakes, and she notices it, asking whether he did something to her while she was out. Ryuta remembers how he lifted her skirt, making Himiko mad, and she walks away. Ryuta tries stopping her, but even his hands disgust her and she asks him not to touch her. Following that, Ryuta tries disinfecting Kiyoshi's wound and gets kicked by him. He asks Himiko to help, but she can't bring herself to touch that geezer's hairy body. Ryuta reminds Himiko that he was bitten while protecting her and she forces herself to hold Ryuta. Elsewhere, Takanohashi checks the live feed of the players, realizing that Ryuta is still alive. The employee mentions how he has only eliminated one player and Takanohashi asks the employee to collect all his footage. At the island, Himiko is looking at her old pictures when Ryuta appears, creeping her out. He mentions how they don't know each other's names and asks her about the cosplay picture on her phone. This makes her embarrassed and she kicks Ryuta's leg, saying that she isn't working with the two of them as she still doesn't trust men. Following that, Ryuta asks Himiko how she got all those bombs as one can't steal them without eliminating the player. Kiyoshi asks Ryuta if Himiko has eliminated the players and he agrees. Himiko replies she didn't have any other choice or that Fatty would have popped her cherry. Ryuta reminds her that she is under a lot of suspicion and he can't relax his guard until he knows the whole story. It only takes one hit from the back to eliminate someone and she could get their chips to escape the island. Suddenly, someone uses sonar and Himiko realizes that she was found. This results in her deciding to leave, advising the boys to hide as well. However, Ryuta stops her and decides to take care of that player, wanting to finish the discussion afterward. Ryuta uses his sonar and suddenly, Masashi attacks him from behind, but Ryuta manages to dodge. He then manages to run away and jumps off a cliff. Masashi follows behind and Ryuta threatens him with a bomb. Furthermore, Ryuta suggests not fighting each other and teaming up instead, but Masashi doesn't care as he hates selfish kids like Ryuta. Nonetheless, Ryuta decides to leave and tells Masashi not to follow when suddenly another bomb explodes, and using this chance, Masashi strikes him. Elsewhere, Himiko also hears the explosion and Ryuta is pinned down onto the ground by Natsume, who asks Masashi to eliminate Ryuta. However, he gets tased by Masashi, who then manages to get away. Natsume then suggests going after Masashi, but he replies that his plan was to let go of Ryuta from the start as he is most likely already in a team. After Ryuta returns, Himiko asks if the players followed him and he reassures her that everything is alright. However, she is still cautious about footsteps and decides to leave and starts packing her stuff when unexpectedly, Masashi appears. He mentions that after seeing Ryuta's stun gun, he was sure that she was with him as well. He then notices the supplies she stole from him and wonders what happened to the whale who was with her. Himiko says that it wasn't her fault and Masashi replies that he will strip her clothes to search for his crystal. Ryuta threatens him with his taser, but it doesn't affect Masashi as he corners Ryuta and mentions how stealing the chip is the only way to escape the island and people playing this game seriously are the only sane ones. Ryuta replies that a game this big must have balancing issues and mentions that he used to work for the company that is responsible for this game. However, Masashi couldn't care less and prepares to attack Ryuta when Kiyoshi tries to tackle him, only to get his fingers cut by Masashi. Ryuta uses this chance to tase him but gets thrown off the building. Following that, Ryuta finds himself on a branch and gets back to that spot, finding Kiyoshi struggling due to intense pain. Soon after, he realizes that Masashi took all their supplies along with Himiko. He starts blaming himself and notices Himiko's phone. After opening it, he sees the wallpaper and the cosplay she is wearing, reminding him of the wife he had in the game. This results in Ryuta making up his mind to go and find Himiko while Kiyoshi begs him to not leave him alone. Elsewhere, Natsume and Masashi are eating the food they stole from Himiko and have tied her to a bed. Himiko mentions that it's her food and Masashi puts a knife to her throat. She asks him to eliminate her already and promises not to fight back. However, Masashi is looking forward to torturing her instead and wants to tear off her skin, wanting to see how long she survives. Suddenly, they hear a sonar, making Masashi wonder who it is. Himiko fires her own sonar and Natsume wonders if this is some kind of signal. Following that, the two of them prepare to fight Ryuta and Masashi tells Natsume to go up front while he'll go around from the left. They are confident that Ryuta shouldn't have any bombs and should be unarmed. Soon after, Masashi notices another sonar and realizes that Ryuta is heading towards Natsume. Just then, he hears an explosion and wonders if Natsume missed and was eliminated. He changes his position and hides inside a room. The footsteps get closer and Masashi tries attacking, only to realize it's Natsume. He tells Masashi that he attacked Ryuta but he disappeared into thin air. The two of them continue to search Ryuta while he enters a room and almost falls into a trap set up by them. Furthermore, he is aware that whoever disarms a bomb, it becomes their property as he confirmed with Himiko before. Luckily, he manages to find Himiko and calls her by her real name, which surprises her. Ryuta then tells his name to her as well and how they might have played together. Surprisingly, Himiko mentions that she knows the world-famous player, but has never played with him. Ryuta realizes that it wasn't the Himiko he thought. As the two of them leave the room, sonar is used and Masashi finds their location. He then tells Natsume to go ahead while he approaches them from the side. Natsume then runs in his zesty fashion while being excited to finally eliminate someone. After finding Ryuta, he throws a bomb and keeps on throwing more while following him using his sonar. Suddenly, a bomb explodes in front of him, but at the same time, Masashi has taken Himiko hostage. He gives Ryuta a chance to fight without bombs. Furthermore, Masashi mentions how the two of them must have 3 crystals in total, and if he combines it with the crystal he and Natsume own, the total is 8. Just then, Ryuta comes out and grabs the knife on the floor, only to get kicked and tossed aside like a ragdoll. Masashi continues to beat him up and makes Ryuta drop the knife. He then mentioned how Ryuta was supposed to fight barehanded but still went for the knife. Ryuta starts getting flashbacks and Himiko tries to help but gets tossed aside as well. Masashi then notices bombs attached to him and they use this chance to run away. The gas bomb explodes and the two of them continue to run away but eventually hit a roadblock. Luckily, Ryuta notices an opening on the roof and climbs up, lifting Himiko afterward as well. However, Masashi, looking like melted cheese, grabs her leg. Ryuta throws a timer bomb at him and Masashi picks it up, wanting to make it his own but realizes it was Natsume's and the bomb explodes. Meanwhile, the two of them hug each other and quickly get away after getting embarrassed. Elsewhere, Takanohashi commentates on this event to the audience. After the incident, Himiko was bullied in school and was playing B2M when Ryuta appeared, inviting her to play together. However, Himiko refuses and Ryuta replies that everyone has things they don't want to talk about but knows very well that he wants to stay with her. This makes her cry in real life. On the island, Ryuta has 3 crystals in his hand and realizes that Masashi's will is stronger than his. Elsewhere, Kakamoto promises Hidemi that he will protect her. He then notices a bunch of lizards and Hidemi ends up pushing him towards them, saying that her only way off the island is to collect the crystals. She then throws a bomb at the lizards, deciding to survive no matter what. On the other hand, Takanohashi tells the company president about how everyone betrays each other. He further mentions that because the live stream could record someone rubbing one out, a 3D model will be more suitable. The president wants to use the original audio so viewers can get the live experience and says how this game makes him look like a god. Meanwhile, Ryuta and Himiko find a new building to stay the night in and he notices that they don't have many supplies left. He then gives her some biscuits and decides to change his clothes, giving a t-shirt to Himiko as well. Following that, he leaves the room so Himiko can change and then tells her to sleep in that room while he sleeps in the other one. Ryuta also says that Himiko would rather stay away from men and starts walking away, but she stops her, asking if he would leave her alone like this. This makes Ryuta blush and he decides to sleep in the same room. Later, Himiko puts a boundary between them and tells him not to cross it. Later that night, Ryuta remembers that it was Himiko who saved him and thanks her for doing so. But Himiko argues that she should be the one to thank him as he came to save her without any bombs, calling him crazy, and he agrees. She further questions why Ryuta would go that far for someone he only knew in a game. Ryuta replies that she doesn't understand it himself and says that when he is backed into a corner, his other personality comes up. Himiko still doesn't understand why he would take such a risk and Ryuta replies that he thought she really was the Himiko he knows from B2. He then talks about being a NEET who did nothing but play games and watched OnlyFans models all day. To him, his internet self was the real Ryuta and his online friends were everything. Additionally, Himiko cared about him anyway and it made him really happy. Ryuta then apologizes for mistaking her for Himiko, and she doesn't answer as Himiko is trying her best to hold off her tears. He thinks back to how happy she was after seeing his face and after finding out that he was the Ryuta from the game. Suddenly, he notices a person standing and starts shouting. Himiko then tells Ryuta about what the person looked like and he goes to take a look around the building. He then asks Himiko if she really saw someone and just thinking about his seaweed hair scares her. Ryuta calls it a dream, but Himiko says that the person even shone a light in her face. This makes Ryuta realize that he might be another player and uses his sonar to find him but fails. This means that the player must be hiding nearby and the two of them go out to search for him. Ryuta then suggests splitting up, but Himiko refuses as she has already pissed herself. Ryuta then notices a light nearby and goes to check it out, leaving Himiko behind. After arriving at the place where the light is coming from, he witnesses a room full of supplies. This makes Ryuta realize that this must be a trap, and just then, the person appears and almost stabs him, but the weapon gets stuck in the floor, allowing Ryuta to kick that person away, making him realize that it's a woman. Furthermore, Ryuta notices that her arm is the shape of a cucumber and doesn't have a crystal. Later, Himiko accidentally smacks Ryuta in the face when he appears behind her. He then takes Himiko to that room, saying that she is most likely not a player. Soon after, she wakes up and kicks Ryuta, telling him to leave the room. After Ryuta leaves the room, the girl named Shiki tells Himiko that she shouldn't trust men, but Himiko replies that she needs to work with Ryuta in order to survive and has started to trust him. Shiki says that Himiko is naive as none of that crap works there, as everyone only loves themselves. Luckily, she decides to tell them the stuff she knows about the island. Apparently, she came to this island 6 months ago and used to be a nurse. One day, there was a medical accident and Masahito, who she respected, was in charge of it. She did all she could, even altering the medical records to protect him, but he ended up blaming Shiki. Following that, she received the Bitume letter, but someone ended up writing her name in their letter as well. In the end, both she and Masahito ended up on the island, and he promised to work hard together and escape the island. But just when they got their 6th crystal, Masahito betrayed her. He exploded her with a bomb that severed her right arm, and after taking the crystal, he left. Back in the present, Shiki tells Himiko to be careful, as after getting the 6th crystal, she and Ryuta will be tested as well. Following that, Himiko tells this to Ryuta, and he wonders if they can steal the helicopter using their bombs, as with that, all of them can escape the island. Elsewhere, Masahito appears in front of Kiyoshi and seems to have treated his arm. Kiyoshi starts crying and thanking Masahito, but he replies that it is his duty as a doctor. However, his real intention is to use Kiyoshi later and questions why he was dragged back to the island. Just then, Ryuta and Himiko return, surprised to see Masahito. He tries acting innocent, telling Ryuta that all he did was treat Kiyoshi as he is a doctor. Additionally, Kiyoshi vouches for Masahito, saying that he treated his wounds and is a good person. Ryuta apologizes to Masahito for doubting him and asks to see his bombs. Apparently, he has the remote-controlled bombs that are mostly used for traps. Himiko remembers how she used to fall for these, and Ryuta replies that it's because she always rushes forwards. Following that, Ryuta returns the bombs to Masahito, apologizing once again. He then tells Masahito his plan to escape by hijacking a helicopter, saying that they already have 3 crystals, making Masahito surprised. As expected, Masahito agrees to team up and Ryuta introduces everyone else to him. Just then, they notice supplies dropping from planes, and Masahito suggests going after them as their number might give them an advantage. Meanwhile, Masahito thinks about how he can get 3 free crystals. Following that, the 3 of them go after the drops, and Ryuta notices a sonar. He uses his own sonar and locates 6 people in the forest. However, Ryuta decides not to give up, and the 3 of them continue to run after the drops. Suddenly, another player appears beside Ryuta who is running towards the drop. Both of them jump to catch the drop, only to fall down the mountain. They both then throw bombs at each other, while Himiko also gets confronted by a Hide-Me. Himiko gets kicked in her face and loses consciousness. Hide-Me then throws a timer bomb on her body, and it explodes soon after. Meanwhile, Ryuta tries to find the other guy named Oda and notices Masahito trying to get the supplies. Just then, Oda throws a poisonous gas bomb at Masahito. Ryuta advises him to run away, and Masahito lets go of the briefcase, but throws it in Ryuta's direction using a bomb, which he manages to catch. Oda starts running after Ryuta while Hide-Me thinks about going through Himiko's corpse to get the crystal. Just then, Himiko comes running and tases Hide-Me. She further mentions how Hide-Me only has 2 bombs left and says that her bomb type is more useful in close combat, but using bombs in such a cramped place could be dangerous. Hide-Me asks Himiko if she expects her to run away after seeing her taser, saying that she'd easily beat her in a 1 versus 1. As Ryuta continues to run away, another player throws a firebomb at him. Coincidentally, That player is with Kira and Oda jumps above the fire, kicking Ryuta in his face. Oda then takes the briefcase and runs through the fire, jumping into the ocean afterward. Ryuta runs away and falls into the ocean as well. On the other hand, Kira notices that the beach isn't far away and the two of them will probably come up there. At the same time, Himiko starts shaking in fear after seeing the baddie in front of her. Hidemi asks if someone plugged the cord inside of her and Himiko tells her to shut up. But Hidemi argues that her carrying a taser signifies her weak heart, which makes Himiko attack, but Hidemi dodges it and pins her down to the ground. Hidemi soon realizes that the blondie is more jacked than she looks while Himiko starts getting flashbacks of Ryuta. Eventually, she manages to get up and throws Hidemi into a tree. This makes Hidemi grab her iron pipe, but Himiko manages to tase her ginormous melons. Sadly, it doesn't affect Hidemi much as she grabs Himiko's hair and starts slamming her head on the ground. Suddenly, a bomb appears out of nowhere and they run away. After the explosion, Masahito appears and asks Himiko if she is alright. Even though Himiko replies that she is alright, she is damn aware that Masahito tried eliminating them both. He then suggests searching for Ryuta while Himiko thinks about how she can only trust Ryuta. Elsewhere, Ryuta gets out of the water and notices that the other player, Tomoki, is already on the beach. Tomoki notices the supply briefcase on the beach and decides to go for it, only for the case to explode. Turns out Oda was the one behind it, and just when he is about to walk away, Ryuta warns him not to move. He forces Oda to drop all the bombs and crystals he has. Oda quietly surrenders, but Ryuta can't figure out why he gave up so quickly. He wonders if this could be a trap and remembers the remote-controlled bombs he saw earlier. He figures that the case is surrounded by mines. Ryuta then tells Oda to open his palms, but surprisingly, he doesn't have a remote. Nonetheless, Ryuta walks towards the case and Oda, who is holding the remote in his mouth, makes it explode. Oda then realizes that Ryuta is still alive and Ryuta mentions that he won't lose at B2. Ryuta figures that Oda will sneak through the smoke to grab his bombs and throw his own bomb, then use sonar. Oda then takes a bomb from Tomoki and uses his sonar, noticing that Ryuta is running away. Nonetheless, he throws the bomb and Ryuta gets underwater to protect himself from the flames. Meanwhile, Himiko tries going after Ryuta, but Masahito stops her, saying that she could be attacked too if they aren't cautious enough. Oda then grabs his bomb and calls out Ryuta's name. This surprises Ryuta and Oda walks away. Ryuta tries following him but fails to catch up. He then hears Kira's laughter, who is excited after witnessing such a battle. Furthermore, he manages to steal Ryuta's bombs, saying that they were his to begin with. With that being said, Kira leaves and Ryuta feels lightheaded and falls to the ground, realizing he didn't get the food and lost all his bombs as well. Just then, Himiko and Masahito arrive. Ryuta mentions how he lost everything, but Masahito consoles him that it's alright. He then thanks Himiko for finding him and she gives him a hug. However, he is forced to push her away or his could have revealed itself. Elsewhere, Hidemi complains about the type of food they receive. Oda accidentally calls Hidemi by a different name, making her confront Oda for not learning her correct name. He then tells the girl with a receding hairline to eat her food, reminding her that they are partners. Meanwhile, Ryuta is still thinking about how Oda knew his name and realizes that he looks similar to a kid who went to his school. Oda was popular while Ryuta was a lady-repelling machine. For some unknown reason, Oda started talking to him and the two of them became friends pretty quickly. Oda used to think he could only open up in front of Ryuta, and he also told Oda that he liked Eiko. Oda then advised Ryuta to ask her out, but Ryuta was too much of a wuss to try. He kept on forcing Ryuta and eventually called him a cherry boy for not having the balls. In the end, Oda said that the first person to take action wins, and this is the only difference between the two of them. However, Ryuta told him to shut it and continued to play games after returning home. One day, Eiko was crying in class and Oda's girlfriend confronted him for betraying her, but he walked away. Later that day, Ryuta asked Oda what had happened and he replied that he explored Eiko's cave. This made Ryuta freak out and he punched Oda in the face and continued to beat him, thinking about how he opened up to Oda but got betrayed in return. Eventually, the teachers stopped Ryuta and both of them were suspended. Oda quit school and ended up with his own club. Back in the present, Ryuta wonders why Oda did such a thing and realizes that the person from before really was Oda. Furthermore, he questions himself if Oda is going to become his enemy. While Ryuta cooks food, Masahito thinks about how Ryuta didn't get the food and ended up running away, forcing him to share the small amount of food he had left. Ryuta thanks Masahito for sharing his supplies and Masahito mentions how they might need to get more tomorrow. Ryuta asks if another drop will come tomorrow and Masahito realizes that knowing too much can raise suspicion. This results in him making an excuse about focusing on food, informing Ryuta that supplies come every day at noon. After the food is cooked, he gives some of it to Kiyoshi, but he refuses to eat something made by a shut-in meat. Masahito then checks on Kiyoshi and mentions that the lizard's venom is keeping the wound from healing and that he requires proper treatment. Himiko then calls Ryuta outside and tells him that Shiki mentioned that there was a medicine supply. Ryuta figures that there must be serum to heal the lizard bites, deciding to find it with Masahito. She starts acting a bit weird after hearing Masahito's name while Masahito is forced to feed Kiyoshi, hating every second of it. Ryuta then returns and asks Masahito to come along and help them find the medical supplies. Masahito agrees, but Kiyoshi is sad that everyone is leaving him alone. With that being said, the three of them go out and Himiko tells Ryuta that she doesn't trust Masahito. She then mentions what happened at the beach and is sure that he plans to eliminate them. Ryuta tells her that it's important for her to trust people in order to survive. He further reminds her that Masahito didn't use a single bomb and even shared his food with them. Himiko decides not to bring it up again and walks away. Eventually, they arrive at an old building and Ryuta asks Himiko where it is. Turns out she planned to ask Shiki but has to keep her existence a secret from Masahito. He asks them how Himiko knows that the supplies are there and she ends up making a weird excuse. In the end, they decide to split up and search for it. Masahito walks into the building, thinking that he is back and that the people behind the game want them to fight in the building. Sadly, all the medicines are past their expiry date and there are no serums he could use. Nonetheless, he decides to toss in some bottles to satisfy the others. Ryuta then runs into Masahito, who asks Ryuta if he doesn't trust him. He further tells Ryuta that mutual trust is what will help them survive, and he agrees. Following that, Masahito gives his bag to Ryuta, but he starts getting a weird feeling about it. Suddenly, Ryuta notices Himiko running towards him and tells him to get rid of the briefcase he is carrying. But by that time, Masahito presses the button, causing an explosion. After taking care of Ryuta, Masahito walks towards Himiko, asking how she knew that the briefcase had a bomb in it. He further mentions that she will meet the same end and how the weak exist to be devoured by the strong. Just when he is about to throw bombs at her, Shiki stabs him from behind. 10 minutes earlier, Himiko met up with Shiki and told her about the lizard wound. Shiki replies that there was no such medicine there. She then takes Himiko to a window to show her the room, only to notice Masahito standing there, which makes her furious. Following that, Shiki tells Himiko that the person who betrayed her is none other than Masahito. Himiko tells Shiki that he has remote-controlled bombs and Shiki tells Himiko that he will betray them. Furthermore, she noticed him planting a remote bomb inside the briefcase, and after seeing it with Ryuta, Himiko runs towards them, telling Ryuta about the bomb, but it was too late. After stabbing him, the two girls run away, but Masahito mentions how he has planted bombs inside the building and starts detonating them. Shiki gets out of the building, only to witness Masahito standing in front of them. Shiki mentions how Masahito most likely returned due to selling fake sausage enlargement pills. This pisses him off and Masahito says that he knows the location of all the bombs planted inside the building. Himiko starts feeling depressed and Masahito asks if Himiko is already giving up as her boyfriend was eliminated in front of her. Suddenly, Shiki throws a bomb at Masahito, causing him to fall to the ground. She mentions how it is a 2 versus 1 and he's at the disadvantage. Shiki further mentions that God must have brought them together. Masahito acts as if he is running away, taking Shiki to the spot where the bomb is planted and detonating it. This makes her fall onto the ground while Masahito escapes unharmed. He realizes that Himiko is the only one left and how he can collect all the crystals after eliminating her. Himiko knows that he is coming for her but can't run away as she is surrounded by bombs. This leaves her with no other choice than to fight Masahito. However, she still hesitates and thinks about how it's impossible without Ryuta, as he has always been with her to cheer her up. She regrets not telling Ryuta that she is Himiko, and Masahito appears, offering her to team up so that way they can collect all the crystals they need to go home. She calls him a liar and Masahito throws a bomb at her, but it bounces off her jugs and returns back to him instead of exploding. He figures that the switch isn't working because he doesn't have the right to use it. Masahito then uses sonar and notices Ryuta coming out of the rubble, asking Himiko if she is alright. Masahito asks Ryuta how survived, and it turns out Ryuta managed to throw the briefcase away and jump into the room below. Himiko is glad that he is still alive and Ryuta mentions how it feels as if something is keeping him alive. Ryuta then comments on how Masahito can only use remote explosives right now and is currently unarmed. While he has one bomb, Himiko is fully armed as well, asking Masahito to admit defeat or meet his demise. This results in Masahito running away, regretting not confirming if Ryuta was alive or not. Ryuta ends up following him, not knowing that it is exactly what Masahito wants. After chasing him for a while, Ryuta appears in front of a spot where Masahito has planted his bomb. After pressing the button, nothing happens and Ryuta mentions that he found that bomb and changed its location. That bomb went off behind Masahito and gravely injured him. Ryuta tells Himiko that they need to eliminate him as Masahito only got close to them to steal their crystal. Just then, Shiki appears, saying that the kids don't have to dirty their hands as this always has been between him and her. Masahito starts begging her to stop and Shiki advises him to grow some balls and meet his demise like a man. She then gets down and puts her weapon against his throat while Masahito apologizes. She then lifts it up but fails to stab him, making Masahito think that she forgave him. In the end, Shiki can't bring herself to eliminate Masahito and ends up hugging him. Outside, Ryuta is waiting for Himiko, who is taking a shower, making sure that he doesn't get a sneak peek of her plot. Ryuta mentions how he can't understand why Shiki forgave Masahito when he did horrible things to her. Himiko then comments on how they need to take the medicines they got from Shiki to Kiyoshi, but Ryuta wants to check the bodies they found on their way to find any additional crystals. This includes Mitsuo, Kira's father, and the first person he eliminated. Himiko mentions how this will only increase their total number to 6. Ryuta replies that the first guy had 2 chips, so that should increase the total number of crystals to 7. He plans to use it and call a helicopter, allowing them to escape. He then accidentally checks out her bear plot, receiving a slap as punishment. Following that, they check Mitsuo's body but don't find a crystal. Himiko starts crying after seeing his corpse, and Ryuta reminds her that it was self-defense and not her fault. As they continue to walk, Ryuta realizes that apart from them, Kiyoshi is the only one who knows about these crystals and decides not to think this way. After returning to their home base, Ryuta hears something and it turns out to be Kiyoshi's bomb. Before this happened, Kiyoshi was getting all sorts of weird thoughts while he was alone at their hideout. He then walked outside and noticed his son standing there. He confronted Kiyoshi for not returning home, but he explained to his son about his injury and not having enough crystals. Just then, he started seeing his wife as well, who asked Kiyoshi about the amount of chips he possessed. This made Kiyoshi realize that he could just steal the other ones from the lovebird, which would allow him to return back home. Meanwhile, Ryuta and Himiko returned to the hideout and Kiyoshi was keeping an eye on them from afar. Just when Ryuta climbs the ladder, the flying bomb appears and starts following Ryuta as he tries to run away from it. He accidentally slips and falls but still manages to strike the drone with a rod. He then notices another drone coming towards him, and even after he hits it, the bomb explodes and severs his leg. Himiko begs Kiyoshi to stop and remembers Shiki's words, wondering if Kiyoshi is betraying them to get all the crystals. Ryuta uses his sonar but can't seem to spot Kiyoshi. He tries to think of the reason behind Kiyoshi's betrayal and remembers all the times that Boomer acted like a weirdo. He then wonders if this was his fault, as he was the one who made Kiyoshi feel so anxious and did the same things that his dad used to do to him. His dad was obsessed with work and never gave him any time. This resulted in his mother divorcing and marrying another man to add some spice to her life. Ryuta thought about how adults were selfish and only pretended to care about him. He questions if he did the same things to Kiyoshi that he didn't want to face himself. Oda in a flashback reminds Ryuta that he is running away from reality, and Himiko tries picking her up when another drone appears. He tells her to run away, but instead, he gets up and stands still, remembering the rules she used to follow in B2. This gives her an idea and she catches the drone, pressing the switch to turn it off. She then decides to protect Ryuta at all costs. And at this point, Ryuta is sure that Himiko is the same girl that he met in B2. Following that, Himiko figures that Kiyoshi is hiding somewhere where they can't spot him and reassures Ryuta that she will protect her, as the bombs can only target one person. Elsewhere, Kiyoshi locks the target and sends another drone while Himiko gets ready to protect him. Ryuta realizes that if Kiyoshi wants to eliminate him, he won't waste all his bombs and figures that his target is Himiko. He grabs the drone, disarms it, and uses sonar to spot Kiyoshi's location. Kiyoshi tries running away, but the two of them follow him. Kiyoshi falls off a slope and notices that he only has one bomb left. But just then, Ryuta appears and tells Kiyoshi that he wants to go home with him and promises to not worry him again. He asks Kiyoshi to give him one last chance and allow him to apologize. Out of nowhere, dragons appear in front of Kiyoshi, who figures that this is karma. He thinks about how he just wanted to go home and locks himself as the target, exploding himself along with the lizards. Following that, Ryuta cries in front of Kiyoshi's corpse, telling him to say something and do the things he normally used to do. Later, they return to their hideout and Himiko asks Ryuta if Kiyoshi planned to betray them from the start. Ryuta replies that he wasn't like that and did what he did because he got scared and suspicious. They left him alone and despair started closing in, forcing him to act this way. He then starts blaming himself and mentions how he wants to escape this hell and return home. Himiko offers her crystals to Ryuta, asking him to leave the island. Apparently, she took the ones Kiyoshi had as well. There are 6 in total, and after he takes hers, he'd be able to return home. She mentions that only one of them can leave and asks Ryuta to eliminate her. Himiko thinks about how she doesn't have a place to return to anyway and remembers how it was Ryuta who changed her when she had nowhere to go. Furthermore, he saved her when she was ready to lose her life, which makes her realize that Ryuta is her hope for survival. She doesn't care what happens to her as long as Ryuta survives. However, Ryuta yells at her for thinking that he'd sacrifice her and mentions that he will never abandon her. Not in this world nor the virtual one. He then comments on how she is the Himiko he met in the game, and the two of them hold each other's hand, followed by a kiss. He then pins her down but notices that Himiko is still scared because of what happened to her. Ryuta starts seeing Oda again, who advises him to go all out and put that meat to use. However, Ryuta removes these kinds of thoughts from his mind, realizing that if he was kind to his family and didn't look down on others, he wouldn't have ended up on this island. Eventually, he decides not to be like Oda and gets off of Himiko. He informs Himiko that the rocket doesn't have enough fuel to launch, and decides to do it later. Ryuta then suggests leaving the island together. Himiko gives him a hug as he decides to leave this island for sure. This was all about the gamers. Do you think the two of them will ever team up with someone else? Comment crystals below if you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like and subscribe. See you guys in the next video.